man, this thing's a mess. This whole setup has just been in chaos, like the rest of the world for a while. I don't know how much sense this particular rant is going to make because we're in chaos. We're in a lot of chaos. There's a lot of chaos going on. You want to know more about that? You can watch my live streams on Navigating Patterns. Talk about the chaos there. Computer industry ran into chaos years and years ago. We ran into the flood. The flood is one of the things that causes chaos, right? Breakdown of order is another. The flood can cause the breakdown of order by covering it up. That, if you don't understand that, you can read this. Book club on this, on Navigating Patterns. We had a flood of programmers. We had a subsequent flood of DevOps engineers when flooding the industry with programmers didn't work. And we just have these floods, and it's really not helpful. Right? And now we've got a flood of security problems that never existed, ever. Early 2000s, security breaches were rare. Why? Systems were bigger and more centralized. Software didn't have all fancy languages. Yeah, but we had much fewer programmers. Yeah, but they were all good. They were excellent programmers. And now we don't have that. A bunch of crappy programmers don't know what the hell they're doing, who are trying to do too much. They're trying to do DevOps. They're trying to do software engineering. They weren't even taught software engineering. They were taught basically what we used to call scripting. They were taught variables and recursion. Variables and recursion are great. You need to know that. Also, doesn't make you a software engineer. I don't know what to tell you. It doesn't. So it's so frustrating to even think about it. How the mighty have fallen. People used to write their own freaking OSs back in the day. The last person that did that by himself is crazy as the day is long. Which is unfortunate. The flood of people in the industry is not good. And now the new flood is here, which is the flood of cybersecurity people. Now look, big fan of cybersecurity. Also, my friends and I have had servers online for 10 years without rebooting and never gotten broken into. I don't know what you think has changed, but it hasn't changed. In order to be insecure on the internet, you have to break it. Right? It's that simple. It's really easy to be secure. The number of cybersecurity incidents that are related to buffer overflow problems and things like that is minuscule. They're almost all configuration problems. And in the error of containers, what you have is less code, microservices, and more configuration. So, just a math problem for you. If you've got 10 or 100 times more configuration going on, how many bugs and security holes do you think you're creating? Between 10 and 100 times more. It's really not a magical, mystical, ununderstandable equation. That's why you have all the cybersecurity problems. Now, this is related to the chaos. The other thing that occurred to me as I was taking a shower today after being outside and running around, we had a flood of technology, novel technology. One way to understand novel technology is video games. Many video games are novel, even if they're like first-person shooter, right? They have some novel element to them. We get attracted to them. We get overloaded, overflowed with them. I've met a lot of people, obviously younger than me, and I've said things like, "Oh yeah, I got to grab the hay rake," and they're like, "What's a hay rake?" And I'm like, how do you live in this world and not know what a hay rake is? I mean, I'm serious. I grew up in a city, mind you. I grew up in Lowell, Mass. I didn't grow up in the country. Also went to the farms, went to 4-H, went to Boy Scouts, went to summer camp, was on farms with people, right? Because I wasn't playing video games. Right. When you have a flood of technology, it's hard to know what technology to pay attention to. Well, video game technology is great for 10, maybe 15 years until they shut off your damn servers, right? Video game becomes obsolete because some retard rewrote the OS for no apparent reason, didn't add any functionality whatsoever, but decided, hey, it's novel OS time, right? Thank you, Microsoft. If you could stop breaking stuff, that would be great. My freaking Commodore 64 is more stable and prints more reliably than freaking Windows ever did. Any version, by the way. Should tell you something about the flood. But also other things you learn in life. So, and I don't know if this is, we'll say, valid. I don't, how do we know what we know? If somebody tells you they can know what you know, or they know what they know, how they know what they know or something, just smile and nod, be polite. Also ignore everything they say because they're dumb. It's not mathematically, physically possible for that to be true. So it just ain't true. It's not that hard, right? Don't make it hard. Don't make excuses. But it occurred to me that there's a parallel. There's a wonderful book. I don't have it here. It's in the shed somewhere. I'm getting the books out of the shed, hopefully today. Maybe later this week. Called Obfuscated C and Other Mysteries. It's a wonderful book if you know C in particular. It's fun. It's a novel book. It's a novel book about novel programming, in fact, in C. You may say, oh, Mark, C is old, and C was always old, and because that's kind of true. But it turns out you can do funny things, like you can have something in C that compiles that looks like a train on the screen, like the code that you feed into the compiler. It's quite amusing. Obfuscated C and Other Mysteries. It's a great book. There was an Obfuscated C contest where you'd send in the hardest to read C, and then of course people got cute, and it wasn't necessarily hard to read, but like it was pictures like trains and cool things like that, where you'd have to figure out what the code did by looking at it. And the reason why I think that's important is because I'm not going to claim this is how I know things about the world, because I'm fairly sure it's not. It's just one more way to know things about the world, or one more pointer about knowledge in the world. You get the sense that a programming language like C, now C is a very simple programming language to learn in 20 minutes, the entire syntax, C, not C++. C++ is garbage. Don't go anywhere near it. But C, 20 minutes. Understanding the power and the proper usage of it is not 20 minutes. But like you can go K&R Guide, I think I have the second edition. You can go through the K&R Guide. It's a tiny book, and you can learn C in no time at all. It's really easy. The number of things you can do with C is, well, everything that you have on a computer with almost no exceptions, right? Very few except some of the embedded stuff, some of the GPU stuff, right? But that's a minor amount of code. Everything else is written in C. All the other programming languages are written in, or were originally written in C, obviously. Right? And so you can do everything in C, but you can learn it in 20 minutes. But you can do everything in it, right? And then you look at something like Obfuscated C, the contests and the results, and you go, wow, there's a lot of ways to make the same thing happen in a language, which is true in the world. There's a lot of ways to clear land. There's a lot of ways to grow crops. There's a lot of ways to raise animals. Now, I'm just talking about the ones that work. There's a lot more that don't work. And the don't work is not obvious at the time. You also learn this from Obfuscated C. You look at the code, and it's not obvious that it works. You don't know until you compile it. And if you compile it and the compiler fails, probably a typo, right? So until fix all the typos and get it to compile and actually run it, you don't know if it works. Now you've already spent 90% of the time. In other words, it is possible that in order to know if something works, you have to put in 90% of the effort before you can even have an idea of whether or not that's true. A lot of people, especially when they're starting companies or something, they set up the company, they get the structure going, and they go, aha, They think they have a working idea because they worked it through in their head, and in your head, everything works perfectly. So seems plausible. And you got to start somewhere. So yes, right? But you don't actually know if it works until the end. That's why they have this thing in entrepreneurship called pivoting. Oh, you got to pivot, right? That's, oh, you found out you were an idiot, and now you got to change your plan. Right. It's the same as pivot. Same word, same term, same concept, right? And that's what concepts are. Sometimes they're expressible in a single word, although not very often. And sometimes they're expressible in multiple ways, and you're talking about the same thing, right? Or it reduces to the same thing over time, right? So you can say, oh, programming this language is faster, right? Until you find out that fast programming causes architecture problems, in which case you realize rapid application development, if used correctly, is wonderful, but no one uses it correctly for prototyping, not production. Production language is different from a rad language. Oh, that's how we used to do it, and it worked really well, by the way. We don't do it anymore. None of the software works. I don't know. Could be a correlation there. When you're looking at going faster because you want quick feedback, you're ignoring the fact that it takes 90% of the total effort. It's easy to get something quick and dirty that works. That's called hacking, or at least it used to be. Right? I'm just going to hack this. That came out of the Model Railroad Club at MIT, of all the weird places. Interesting and storied history. I think that's in Stephen Levy's Hackers. Might be in other places too. I was there, right? Not when the Model Railroad Club was in action, but like I was there, the people who came out of that. So I know a bunch of them, or knew a bunch of them. I'm sure they don't remember me. That's fine. That ordered world where people were kind of on the edge. Everybody can't be on the edge. Everybody can't be on the fringe. That's chaos. That's where we are. The Obfuscated C contest was cool when C was still a big language, and it was only cool for the geeks like me who were like, ooh, C is fun, and look at all the weird things you can do in this programming language that make no sense and probably shouldn't work. And maybe we should fix that, which, to be fair, that's a lot of the subsequent C standards fixed. A lot of the examples in Obfuscated C and Other Mysteries, at least the copy I have, will not compile on a modern machine. And they're valid C. They're just not valid, C97 or C98 or whatever C compiler specification versions they've used since then that tightened up the standards. But tightening standards leads to collapse too. That's how you get chaos, when order collapses. Look, you may need to go over this video again to make sense of it, but I am convinced not only are there nuggets, but it actually makes sense. And I could be wrong about that because it may only make sense to me because I'm me and you're not. And that's good. But just consider it. Also, I hate the flood. Chaos sucks. I just want working software. I'd like a working website. My goodness. Half the websites I go to are totally broken. I'd like anything to work. That would be wonderful. Bet the only things that work right now are mechanical things. My golf cart works great. All my tools work pretty much, even the battery operated ones. But man, nothing that runs electronics to any degree, especially not with a freaking processor in it, has been working. And it is just hell. Ugh. Brand new Chromebook. Logged into Discord. Logged in the next day. Didn't work anymore. Kept stopping. I'm like, how do you break this? It didn't even update. I have no idea. None. I can't even fathom. I think even if they offered me money and said, like, you can come and fix this, and I'm sure I'd theoretically could. I don't think I'd do it. I'd be like, no, bro, you're on your own. I don't even want to know what mistakes you made. This is too much of a catastrophe. I can't face it. And chaos is going to get worse. Buckle up, Buttercup. I don't think it's going to end with an election. I don't think it's going to end a year after an election. I hope I'm wrong. Boy, I hope I'm wrong. Please let me be wrong. But also, be prepared.